in his house. Yazid was on his bed. He saw that there was a companion. Wathila came to visit him. And he wasn't able to speak, but he indicated to this companion to come closer. And then Wathila came to him, and the person Yazid on his bed, he took Waitha's hand and he placed it on his face. Why? Because he wanted to get the blessing of touching a hand that touched the hand of the Prophet. He wanted to get the blessing of touching a hand that shook the hand of the Prophet. And then Wathila, he asks him this profound, simple question. He says, Kayfa dhannuka billah? He says, while you're in this state, what is your opinion? What is your conception? How are you thinking about Allah? And he gives this answer. He says, Qala aghraqatni dhunubi. He says that my sins, I'm drowning in my sins. Wa ashfa'tu ala halakati. And I'm on the brink of destruction. In other words, he's condemning himself, he's remorsing for things that he might have fallen short in his life. But then he says, وَلَكِنِّي أَرْجُو رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ. However, I have strong hopes in the mercy of Allah. So when I meet Allah on my deathbed and I'm turning back to Allah, I have hopes I'm going to die with hope in receiving Allah's mercy. I'm holding fast to that. And then when the companion, when he heard this response, he said, Allahu Akbar. And then when the people of the house, the women and the people in the house, they heard the Sahaba say Allahu Akbar, they all said Allahu Akbar. And then the companion says, فَأَبْشِرْ. He says, take glad tidings, rejoice. Why? فَإِنِّي سَمِعْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهِ وسلم يقول, because I have heard the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. Again, this is somebody that spent time directly with the Prophet. I have heard the Prophet say, قال الله عز وجل, that Allah says, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنِّ عَبْدِي بِي, that I am according to the opinion of the servant that he has of me, in ظَنَّ خَيْرًا وَإِنْ ظَنَّ شَرًّا. If he thinks good of me, he will find good. And if he thinks other than that of me, he will find other than that. And in the narration, it says that سمعت رسول الله يقول الله أنا عند ظن عبدي بي فليظن ذا قال ما شاء. So think whatever you want of Allah, and you will find that reality. And this is one of the most important teachings of this religion, is husn al-dhan billah. We talk about this often because we need to stress this point. We need to try to inculcate this quality. And unfortunately, sometimes people live as Muslims for 10 years, or 20 years, or 30 years, and they never even heard the idea of husn al-dhan billah. What does that mean? It means having a good opinion of Allah. It means thinking positively of Allah, and it means that, and it's one of the best actions, even though it's an action of the heart, it's one of the best actions that someone can have. That their conception of Allah is husn, is beautiful. So it means that one expects and hopes in Allah. It means that someone is optimistic about the future, even though things might seem bleak. They know that ultimately everything is in Allah's hands. They know that when they make dua or when they pray, they have hope and they expect that those du'as and those prayers are answered. It means that when they make tawbah and repent and seek Allah's forgiveness, they push the balance and they feel that forgiveness is going to be accepted, not because of them, but because of Allah. Right? Your prayers are not accepted because of you, but because you have hope in Allah's mercy, you have hope in Allah's bounty, and you know that His bounty and His mercy is far greater than anything from you. And again, that's conjoined with action. And you know that husn al-dhan, part of having a good opinion of Allah, is that you know that after hardship comes ease. So you look at the light at the end of the tunnel. After weariness comes rest. After brokenness comes restoration. After tears comes laughter, after illness comes well-being, and after life in this dunya, inshaAllah, comes paradise. That is all from husn al-dhan billah. And it's expecting the jameel, the beautiful from Allah. And the Prophet told us that Inna Allah jameel, that Allah is beautiful. Yuhibbu al-jamal, and He loves beauty. So internalizing that beauty and thinking about Allah in a beautiful way is from husn al-dhan. And sometimes this is why is it such an important quality? Because this is at the root of our iman. If somebody believes in Allah, but they have the wrong conception of Allah, they think, وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ, that somehow Allah is out there to punish them. They make a small sin, and they feel like a police officer is not going to punish them severely, and Allah's punishment is shadeed. But again, what's your conception? Right? What's your conception? One time there was a man that he only gave fiery speeches on the pulpit. He talked about Jahannam, 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 Jahannam. And then he said that, and somebody asked him, why do you only speak about Jahannam? He says, I want to put fear in the hearts of the listeners. But then he said that it's easier, right? If you really want to attract people, you have to balance it with the hope. And he said, and then another person, he entered the masjid, and the masjid was very hot, and it wasn't very comfortable. And then he said, he remarked on that, and he said, it's okay, because this masjid reminds you of Jahannam. It reminds you of Jahannam. And the person said, I'd rather enter a masjid that reminds me of Jannah. That reminds me of Jannah. So husn al-dhan billah. Look at this beautiful, look at this understanding that this A'rabi, this desert man, he came to the Prophet. Look at his understanding. He came to Rasulullah. He said, Qala ya Rasulullah, man yuhasibu al-khalq yawm al-qiyamah. Oh Rasulullah, who is going to judge creation on the day of judgment? That's an interesting question. Who's going to judge creation on the day of judgment? Allah Azza wa Jalla. Allah, of course. Who else? Qala aflahtu wa rabbil Ka'bah. He says, if that's the case, Wallahi, I'm successful. I'm good. If that's the case, Wallahi, I'm successful. Ajib. And then he said, إِذَا يَتْرُكُ حَقَّهُ وَرُبَّمَا قَالَ إِذَا لَا يَأْخُذُ حَقَّهُ. Because he said that, if Allah is the one that's judging me, then I have mercy. I have hope in Allah's mercy. I have hope in Allah's mercy more than anybody else in the entire creation. Here's another story, another example of having, formulating and creating and developing this husn al-dhan, this good opinion of Allah. That كان لابن أخت مرهق. That this narrator says that I had a cousin that was a young man. He was a teenager. فمرض, but he fell ill, and it looked like he was going to die. فأرسلت إلى أمه فأتيتها. So I sent for his mother to come see your son on his deathbed. فإذا هي عند رأسي تبكي. And when she saw him on his deathbed, of course she started to cry. She saw her son on her deathbed. فقال يا خالي ما يبكيك. So the person said, oh my aunt, why are you crying? قلت ما تعلم منك قال أليس إنما ترحمني. So then he said, the man that was on his deathbed, he said, why are you crying? Said his mother. And she said, don't you know that Allah will have mercy on me? فقلت بلى. And she said, of course. فقال إن الله أرحم بي منها. And he said that Allah's mercy that will have been shown to me is greater than the mercy of my mother, my own mother. And then he passed away after that, and he was seen after that in a dream vision, and he was seen in a good state, and he received the mercy of Allah. But look at his perspective. He's on his deathbed, and he's saying that the mercy of Allah that I'm returning to is greater than the mercy of my own mother. Another example, and that's why